The first day Maya noticed him, she barely paid attention. Just another man in the background of the city park, slouched on the far end of the bench, hands tucked into the sleeves of a fraying coat, his eyes cast downward like he was trying to disappear into the leaves. He was like a shadow no one had time to see, but he was always there. Every day after school, Maya came to that park, not to meet friends or scroll through her phone like the other kids, but to read. It was her escape from the noise, the pressure, the awkward silences at home. She sat cross-legged on the grass or sometimes on the worn wooden bench opposite the fountain, her nose deep in novels about faraway lands, impossible love, and people who fought their way out of the dark. And every day, he was there. Same bench, same coat, same silence. He looked to be in his 40s, maybe older. It was hard to tell through the grime and exhaustion etched into his face. His hair was long and matted, streaked with gray, and his beard was an untamed mess. But he wasn't scary, not like the ones you cross the street to avoid. He was still, like an old tree rooted to that bench. And sometimes, when she glanced up from her book, she caught him watching her. Not in a creepy way, more like longing. At first, she ignored it. Then she got curious. It happened on a Thursday, late September. The air smelled like smoke and apples, and golden leaves swirled around her boots as she flipped pages under the weak sun. She was halfway through a worn copy of The Giver when she noticed it again, his lips moving. Silently, haltingly, like he was trying to read along with her. She pretended not to notice, but her fingers stopped turning pages. She glanced up slowly, caught his eyes for half a second, and saw a flicker of embarrassment before he looked away. The next day, she brought a different book. A children's one. Large print, easy words. She held it a little higher, slower. He watched again, lips moving. Something tugged inside her chest. On Monday, she did what she'd been too shy to do before. She closed her book, stood up, and walked the few steps to his bench. He tensed. "Hey," she said gently, hands in her hoodie pockets. He looked up at her, wary but quiet. "I've seen you watching me read," she continued, trying to sound casual. Do you like books?" His mouth opened slightly, closed. Then he gave a single, subtle nod. "Can you read?" she asked. A long pause, then a slow shake of the head. Maya smiled, small, kind, patient. "Do you want to learn?" He looked stunned, as if the idea had never occurred to him, as if no one had ever asked. Then, slowly, he nodded again. Just once. It was the first time she saw his eyes light up. Not much, just a spark. But it was there. "What's your name?" she asked, sitting beside him. He frowned, blinked, shook his head again. "Okay," she said, thinking. "How about I give you one? Just until you remember." He tilted his head, curious. "Ben," she said. "You look like a Ben." He gave a soft, raspy chuckle, like the sound had to fight its way out. Then, barely audible, "Ben." Maya grinned and pulled a book from her backpack. A little green one with big letters. "All right, Ben," she said. "Let's start with the alphabet." And just like that, a new chapter began for both of them. The first few lessons were awkward, mostly because Maya had never taught anyone to read before. She'd Googled how to teach reading to adults the night after their first conversation and ended up falling down a rabbit hole of YouTube tutorials, phonics apps, and Reddit threads from ex-teachers and literacy volunteers. By morning, her backpack was heavier with books than school supplies. Ben was always there, waiting, still silent, still hunched. But when she showed up with a bright yellow alphabet book and a shy "Hey, ready to learn?" he sat up straighter, wiped his hands on his coat, and nodded like a kid about to enter class for the first time. The first day, they did the alphabet. Big, colorful letters that Maya pointed to while exaggerating the sounds. "It says ah, like apple," she'd say, holding up a flashcard. "Ah." Ben would echo, his voice low and rough, like it hadn't been used in years. "B says but, like book." But. By the end of that first hour, they were both grinning like idiots. Over the next few weeks, the lessons became a rhythm. After school, Maya would swing by the coffee shop, sometimes bringing a sandwich, sometimes just a hot chocolate, then head to the park. Ben was always on the same bench, in the same coat, his posture slowly changing with each day. His eyes grew more alert. His hair still wild, but less lifeless. They sat shoulder to shoulder, sounding out cat, hat, run, son. Maya would write simple sentences in a spiral notebook, and Ben would copy them with careful, shaking hands. I can run. The dog is big. My name is Ben. He liked that one the most. He'd trace the letters over and over, sometimes smiling at the page like it held a secret. But it wasn't always easy. Sometimes he'd freeze mid-sentence, eyes going distant. Or he'd stare at a word like it was about to hurt him. Once, during a reading of Green Eggs and Ham, he dropped the book and clutched his head, whispering something like, "Not again, not again." Maya didn't push. She just waited, quiet, until he blinked back to her. "You're doing great," she'd say softly. And somehow, that always brought him back. There were flashes, moments when his eyes clouded and his hands trembled. He never talked about it, but Maya saw. In those moments, he wasn't on the bench anymore. He was somewhere else, somewhere colder. She noticed the patterns. Sometimes he muttered names he didn't recognize. Sometimes he said things like, "I need the quarterly report," or "Get Jenkins on the line." One afternoon, he stared at the water in the fountain for 10 straight minutes before saying quietly, "I think I drowned." Maya said nothing, just offered him a cookie. Her friends called her Park Girl, now, always with a laugh. "You know he's probably crazy, right? What if he's dangerous? Why are you wasting your time?" She stopped answering. They didn't get it. Because Ben, the man no one saw, was learning to smile. Really smile. He told terrible knock-knock jokes with too long pauses. He started humming when he read aloud. He asked her questions now, about school, books, music. Once, he tried to guess her favorite song. Something sad but hopeful, he said. He was right. She started bringing him more than just books. Clean socks, a comb, notebooks, peanut butter sandwiches wrapped in foil with sticky notes that said things like, "You got this," or "Ben the Reader strikes again." And every day, she left the park feeling a little lighter, as if something broken in both of them was slowly stitching itself back together, one syllable at a time. The rain came out of nowhere that Thursday. One moment it was just overcast. The next the sky split open, pouring sheets of cold, relentless water onto the park. Maya hurried under her umbrella, backpack clutched tight, hoping he'd had the sense to find shelter. But as she neared the bench, his bench, her steps slowed. It was empty. No crumpled figure in the torn gray coat. No cardboard coffee cup beside his feet. No sign of the man who'd become part of her routine, her day, her heart. "Ben," she called softly, heart thudding. No answer. Just the hiss of rain against pavement and the rustling leaves above. Panic prickled. He never left. Not during storms. Not during snow. He always waited, always showed. Her eyes scanned the paths, the trees, the fountain. Then across the street, past the edge of the park, something caught her eye. A lone figure, drenched and unmoving, stood across from a tall stone building downtown. One of those old, stately banks with columns like it thought it was the White House. "Ben," she said again, louder this time, hurrying over. He didn't turn, just stared up at the sign above the entrance like it had spoken to him. It read, "Brooks and Winthrop Private Banking." His lips moved, soundless. A shiver racked through him, and then suddenly, violently, he staggered backward, grabbing his head with both hands. "No, no, not again. Ben." Maya ran to him, just catching his arm as he collapsed against the side of the building. His face was pale, twisted in pain. Hey, I've got you. You're okay. Just breathe, okay?" He was shaking, soaked to the bone, eyes wide with something more than fear. Something deeper. Recognition. Maya dragged him into the alley beside the bank, where an old awning gave some shelter. She wrapped her coat around him, heart racing, watching as he slipped into a half-conscious state, mumbling things that didn't make sense. "Brooks," he whispered. "Nathaniel, yacht, the water, it, crash, Charlotte." His voice broke off into a groan. She pressed a damp cloth to his forehead, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. "Chill. It's okay. You're safe. I'm here." His fevered dreams continued, riddled with fragments. A woman's voice, stern and elegant. The feel of silk sheets. An office with floor-to-ceiling windows. The smell of salt water and gasoline. Screams. Cold. Silence. By the time the rain slowed, he was asleep. And when he finally woke up, hours later, blinking slowly in the dim alley light, something had changed. His eyes were clearer, sharper. "Maya," he said, voice less raspy, more precise, measured. She nodded, trying not to cry from sheer relief. "Yeah, I'm here." He sat up slowly, eyes scanning the empty street. Then, looking down at his hands, he murmured, "I think I used to be someone." She smiled gently, though her heart beat faster. "You still are." He looked back at the bank. "Brooks," he said under his breath. That name, it means something. Maya didn't know what any of it meant, but she knew the man in front of her was waking up from more than sleep. A veil had lifted, and something long buried had cracked through the surface. Ben, no, maybe Nathaniel, was beginning to remember. The flickering glow of Maya's laptop screen was the only light in her bedroom that night. Rain tapped against the window, softer now, like a memory whispering to be heard. Her textbooks lay forgotten, notes untouched. Instead, her browser had 20 tabs open, and her heart hadn't stopped pounding for hours. Nathaniel Brooks. Yacht. Crash. Charlotte. Brooks and Winthrop. She typed in combinations of those words over and over, hoping for a thread to pull, something real to prove she wasn't imagining what she thought she'd seen in Ben's eyes today. And then, in the 6th tab, it appeared. Nathaniel Brooks, 42, presumed dead after yacht accident off the coast of Maine. Founder and CEO of the multi-million-dollar tech startup Volt Forge. Vanished 2 years ago. Body never recovered. Maya stared, her breath caught. The article had a photo. It was taken years ago. Glossy hair, clean-shaven, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her mom's car, but the eyes were the same. Haunted. Sharp. Searching. She zoomed in, heart stuttering in her chest. There was no doubt. It was him. Ben. She whispered his real name like it was something sacred. Nathaniel Brooks. It was too much to process. She sat back, dazed. The quiet man with the worn shoes and mismatched gloves, the one she'd taught the alphabet to with a box of children's books. He used to own companies. A yacht. He'd probably been on Forbes. What the hell happened? She read every article she could find. The yacht had exploded, mechanical failure. His fiancée, Charlotte Reed, had survived, pulled from the water hours later. She'd claimed he dove back to get a backpack. He never returned. The Coast Guard never found a body. A few people suspected suicide. Others thought he'd run. Most chalked it up to tragedy. But no one had guessed this. No one imagined he'd been alive all this time, wandering homeless, without a memory, without a name. Maya sat in stunned silence. Then she did something instinctual. She printed out the article and the photo. Just one copy. It trembled slightly in her hand as she stared at the man in the suit. It felt like holding a ghost. She glanced at her phone. It was nearly midnight. She knew he'd be sleeping, curled up under that tarp behind the bakery, where she helped him set up a dry spot. He'd probably smile tomorrow and ask about the alphabet again. But this changed everything. Or did it? Her hand hovered over the printout. Her mind whirled. What if telling him broke something inside? What if it made everything worse? He was finally laughing again. Smiling. Learning. She saw peace on his face for the first time today. Did she really have the right to steal that away just because she knew the truth? But he's not just Ben. He's Nathaniel Brooks. And he deserves to know. She held the photo tighter, hands clammy. Maya made her decision quietly, firmly. Tomorrow, she would tell him. No more secrets. He had the right to remember who he was, even if it meant losing who he'd become. The wind tugged at the corners of Maya's jacket as she made her way to the bench, clutching the folded article like it was a secret too heavy to carry any longer. The trees overhead were half bare now, their amber and copper leaves spiraling down in lazy loops. The air held the chill of something ending. Ben was already there, as always, sitting on the bench like it was the only place he belonged. He waved at her, a slow, content motion, the kind of greeting that had grown familiar over the last few weeks. He looked rested, cleanish, happier. God, she almost didn't want to do it. But she sat beside him and pulled out the photo, laying it gently on the bench between them. Ben, she began, her voice quiet. I found something. I think this is you. He looked down. At first, nothing. Then, slowly, he leaned forward. Studied it. Silence. Long, aching silence. His brow furrowed, lips slightly parted. His fingers hovered over the picture but didn't touch it. Then, a whisper. Not quite breath, not quite words. That's me. It wasn't a question. Maya didn't speak. She just watched him. Ben picked up the photo, held it with both hands like it might disintegrate. His eyes scanned the article, moving faster than she'd ever seen him read before. Suddenly, he flinched. He gasped, sharp and broken, clutching his forehead. Charlotte, he murmured. My wife, no. Fiancée. She was there. Maya reached out, steadying his shoulder. It's okay. It's coming back. His breathing grew shallow. His pupils dilated. The boat, it exploded. I was swimming. I remember the sound, the fire, and I went back for the bag. Why did I go back? What was so important? Tears welled in his eyes. I saw her on the raft. I thought she was dead. Then nothing. Just dark. Maya squeezed his hand. You didn't die, Ben. You survived. Somehow. And you made it all the way here. He looked at her then. Really looked. As if seeing her for the first time. His voice shook. Why me? Why did I live like this? Alone, lost, begging on corners when I had everything. His voice cracked. What was the point? Maya swallowed back the lump in her throat. Maybe to start again. To see who you are without all that noise. Maybe you were meant to find something real. He stared at her, lips trembling. But I don't even know who I am anymore. She smiled softly. You're Ben. And Nathaniel. You're both. You survived. You learned to read again. You laugh now. You care. His face crumpled, and suddenly, he was crying. Not quiet tears, but deep, aching sobs that came from somewhere old and broken. Maya leaned against him, letting him cry into her jacket as the wind pulled more leaves from the trees. In that moment, Nathaniel Brooks, millionaire, CEO, amnesiac, became fully human again. Not a ghost, not a mystery, just a man reclaiming the pieces of himself, one tear at a time. The air in the lawyer's office smelled like fresh paper and ambition, the kind of sterile sharpness that made Ben feel both grounded and distant. He sat across from a man in a pressed suit who rattled off legal terms with practiced ease. Maya sat beside him, her fingers tapping lightly on the edge of the table as she watched Ben, her quiet support. Mr. Brooks, the lawyer said, leaning forward. You're legally Nathaniel Brooks again. Your identity can be restored. Your assets are still frozen, but we can start proceedings to reclaim them. It's a long process, but it's possible. Ben nodded, his hands gripping the arms of the chair. The name felt strange on his tongue, Nathaniel. A title, a shadow, a ghost. It didn't feel like him anymore. What about my company? He asked quietly. Sold. It was sold to a competitor after your disappearance. They've since gone public and... Ben raised his hand, cutting the lawyer off. It's gone then. It's just gone. The lawyer hesitated but nodded. Yes. Everything you worked for, it's under new ownership now. Ben stared at the desk, feeling the weight of the room collapse around him. He could almost hear the echo of board meetings, the buzz of his former life, but it was fading quickly now. All of it, the prestige, the power, the control, had been reduced to paperwork, to a name on a form. His thoughts drifted back to the memories that haunted him, his wife's face, her tears, the life they had built and lost. He had imagined her out there somewhere, hoping he'd come home, but the truth was harder to swallow than any crash. She had remarried, thinking him dead. She had moved on, just like the world had moved on from him. "I've lost everything," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Maya, sitting at his side, placed a steady hand on his arm. Her presence, as always, was like an anchor in the storm. "No, you've lost the life you thought you had, but you haven't lost who you are. You've already rebuilt yourself, Ben. You've come so far. Look at where you are now." Ben turned his head slowly to meet her eyes. He saw it then, the quiet strength she had shown him all along, the unwavering belief she had when he didn't even believe in himself. She had given him everything, and somehow he felt more complete now than when he had everything. Ben stood up from the chair. He had made a decision. There was a moment of clarity that washed over him, a sudden understanding of who he could be now. He didn't need the wealth, the title, or the corporation, but there was something he could give back. "I want to start something," he said to Maya. "Something that helps people like I was. Lost, forgotten, needing a chance." Maya's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" He smiled softly. "I want to set up a scholarship fund. A foundation. For people who don't have a voice. For kids who can't read, can't learn. I want to make sure no one else has to feel as invisible as I did." He turned back to the lawyer. "Make it happen. I want it to be in her name. Maya Literacy Foundation." The lawyer scribbled on his notepad, not questioning, not asking why. He'd seen wealthy, jaded clients walk into his office and demand to erase their pasts with a stroke of a pen. But Ben was reclaiming something far more valuable than money or status. He was reclaiming his humanity. Maya stared at him, her heart swelling. "Ben, you don't have to." He placed a hand on hers, cutting her off. "You taught me to read, Maya. You taught me that words are powerful, that knowledge is freedom. I never would have gotten this far without you." His voice broke on the last words, but Maya didn't need him to say anything else. She had already seen it, the transformation. From the lost man on the bench to the benefactor ready to change the world. "Thank you," he whispered, looking at her with gratitude and something deeper. "For everything." But Ben didn't just stop at giving away money. As he took the first steps toward reclaiming his life, he found a new purpose, something that made him more than just Nathaniel Brooks, the former millionaire. He had spent weeks learning how to read, learning who he was as Ben, and now he was using what he had learned to build a future, to give others the chance he'd been given. Ben had taught him more than any fortune ever could. It had taught him that true wealth wasn't in gold. It was in the moments that defined you. And now, he was going to make sure that others had the chance to write their own stories. He wasn't Nathaniel Brooks anymore. Not completely. He was someone new, someone real. And Maya? She was there beside him, every step of the way. The sun bathed the modest brick building in golden light, casting long shadows of hope across the sidewalk. A small crowd had gathered out front, murmuring with curiosity and anticipation. A bright white banner stretched across the entrance, the Maya Literacy Foundation, a place to begin again. Maya stood just behind the red ribbon, her hands clasped nervously in front of her. She wore a simple blue dress, hair pulled back, and a lanyard that read Founder's Assistant. She scanned the crowd, local journalists, donors, community members, and then her eyes landed on him. Ben. He stood tall now, clean-shaven in a gray blazer with a soft checkered shirt beneath. The lines on his face remained, but they'd softened into something earned, the kind that only comes from living. His presence commanded attention not because of money or power, but because of something harder to fake, humility. They exchanged a quiet smile as the MC approached the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, Thank you for joining us today for the grand opening of the Maya Literacy Foundation. This isn't just a building. It's a symbol, a reminder that one act of kindness can rewrite a life. And no one embodies that better than the young woman standing beside me, Maya Thompson. A gentle wave of applause rippled through the crowd. Maya stepped forward, heart pounding. She looked out at the sea of faces, and then back to Ben. His nod grounded her, as it always had. She began, voice a little shaky. I used to come to this park to read. I never thought that something as small as reading aloud could matter. But then I met someone who reminded me that the smallest things can mean the most. She paused, glancing at Ben again. This is Ben. But he wasn't always Ben. He was someone else before, someone important, someone wealthy. But when I met him, he didn't have a name, or a home, or a single memory. All he had was the willingness to learn. Her voice wavered again, but this time it wasn't nerves. It was emotion, pride, gratitude. He let me teach him, and in doing that, he taught me so much more. That compassion matters, that anyone can rise again, that kindness has ripple effects. She looked down for a second, collecting herself. I'm heading to college next week. On a full scholarship, she added with a grin. But this foundation, it's the start of something bigger than either of us. It's a place where stories begin again. When she stepped back, Ben took her place at the mic. I never thought I'd stand here again, he said simply. After the accident, I forgot everything. My name, my life, my worth. And then this kid showed up with a book. The crowd chuckled softly, but Ben's eyes misted over. She didn't ask who I used to be. She didn't pity me. She just saw a person who needed a hand, not a label. He turned toward her. Maya gave me back more than reading. She gave me back myself. And today, I hope this place can do the same for others. The ribbon was cut. Applause echoed. Inside the center, children and volunteers buzzed with excitement. Books lined the walls, and tucked into the lobby was a plaque. In honor of Maya Thompson, who proved that one voice can rewrite 1,000 stories. Later, as the event wound down, Maya and Ben stood on the sidewalk, watching families walk inside. You're going to do amazing things, he said. You already are, she replied. They hugged, a long, steady embrace filled with everything they hadn't said but always understood. I'll visit, Maya promised. I'll be here, Ben said. Probably covered in chalk dust or alphabet soup. She laughed, swiping at a tear. Good. He watched her go, backpack over her shoulder, full of books and beginnings. Ben turned back to the center. A new student walked up the steps, nervous, quiet, just like he once had. He smiled and opened the door for them, because Maya had taught him to read. But more than that, she taught him how to live again. Please rate the story on a scale of 1 to 10. Let us know what you think. Your support means the world, and we can't wait to bring you more incredible stories like this.